All right, here we go. It's time for another edition of, yes, you see it over young Cody's right shoulder. It's jonesing for football. We are looking for five-star prospects inside the Big Green NFL Draft Scouting Notebook, which has been in existence all the way since 2005 when the Dallas Cowboys selected DeMarcus Ware and Marcus Spears in the first round. That is when the Big Green Notebook told Bill Parcells, you are making a mistake by wanting Marcus Spears over DeMarcus Ware in the first round. Ware went number 11 overall. Spears went number 20 because Jerry Jones was looking inside the Big Green NFL Draft Scouting Notebook. There's some of the history of why we call it. And why do we call it the Big Green Notebook? Is because we're still looking for a sponsor. We had hopes, Cody, that the Big Green Egg, which I have on my back porch, might become a sponsor. 15 years later, it hasn't happened yet, but it's still a Big Green Notebook. All right.
Well, we're going to get a sponsor sooner or later. It would be nice to base it around the notebook, considering that's kind of our Bible, but it would be nice we'll get a sponsor sooner or later here. Our downloads are on the way up. Our popularity's on the way up. We're soaring. We're doing some good things.
I'm talking to University of North Texas, the Mean Green, University of North Texas, and maybe they can be a sponsor. We can call it the Mean Green NFL Draft Scouting Notebook. They actually might have a drafted player for the first time in 16 years this year in Jalen Darden, the little wide receiver. But we're going to talk about the guys that are going to be guarding the Jalen Dardens of the NFL world. We're talking cornerbacks and safeties on this edition. Oh, and what a great debate we have here in Dallas, Cody, because it looks like the Cowboys, well, obviously they need a cornerback, and it looks like the debate might be between Patrick Surtain II and Jaycee Horn, both sons of former NFL Pro Bowlers. This is a very tasty debate as we sit here 2 weeks away from draft day.
Yep. The Cowboys need DBs, and these two guys seem to be at the top of most people's boards. Bill Jones, let me just start you off. I like Jaycee Horn. I favor him in the comparison with Surtain.
You're going against the grain. You're going against the grain there because there's a lot of people who have Surtain slightly ahead of Jaycee Horn. I can't wait to hear. I want you to convince me why Jaycee Horn should be the pick of the Dallas Cowboys at number 10.
Okay, good. I'm prepared to do that. Here we go. Let me run you through Horn really fast. Good size. 6'1", 205. He ran a 4.37 at the pro day. The vertical was very impressive, 41.5, which I went back and looked this up, Bill Jones. That would have been number one against corners last year. If you compare to last year's corner class, so 41 is awesome. A broad jump of 11.1 is great. That would actually put him in the top 5 among last year's corners. And he also benched 19 times. So this dude is a freak athlete, proved it at his pro day. And my buddy James Palmer was there at Alabama for the pro day when he put up his numbers. And James Palmer said consensus among the NFL personnel was it couldn't have gone any better for Jaycee Horn than the numbers he put up at pro day there at South Carolina. The last 2 seasons on the field, dude was dominating, and he really capped it last year. 8 catches he allowed on 24 targets in 7 games, and he had 7 picks as well. And Bill Jones, Jaycee Horn, he's the subject of my win stat for today. I got to give a hat tip to our friends over at Pro Football Focus for this one. So Horn allowed a 33% completion percentage last year, which was the lowest in the SEC. And that includes Patrick Surtain and both of the Georgia corners, Campbell and Stokes, who are also pretty highly regarded. And so I love the physicality of Horn. I feel like he's not a natural corner. Like he's just, you can tell the difference. That's where the difference is between Horn and Surtain. Surtain does everything right. You can just tell all his movements. He's just more polished than Horn, but I actually like the physicality. Bill Jones, I know you've watched Horn. The dude he's making plays on running backs. He's lighting running backs up, blitzing off the edge. The dude loves contact. And you notice this, I know you did. He talks a little bit afterwards. He'll get in your face after he makes the play. So I like Horn, and I look at it like this, Bill Jones. If you can win over your biggest rival, that's a good sign. And when Trevor Lawrence tweeted that Horn is a dog, I said, okay, if you can get a Clemson quarterback to complement a South Carolina DB, what else do you need to say? The guy.
So he didn't win over his rival Clemson, but he did win over his rival, the Clemson quarterback, Trevor Lawrence.
That's correct. And like I said, if Trevor's backing you, that's good enough in my book.
I love his he describes himself. He was asked. I saw a podcast that he did with Bryant McFadden and Patrick Peterson was on it actually. And they asked him what kind of animal would he be. He said he's a dog. And there's not a lot of cornerbacks who are a dog like he's a dog. And he'll bite your leg off. And but he's got that alpha personality on the field, but he seems humble off the field too. People talk about his dad, Joe Horn, and the cell phone celebration when he was with the Saints. And he has that personality off the field. It sounds like right now anyway, Jaycee Horn has all that confidence on the field, but he seems pretty humble off it. Let's talk about Surtain a little bit, because when you talk about the measurables with Jaycee Horn, Surtain is right there, right behind him with those measurables. He had a terrific pro day as well. He's 6'2", 208, while Horn is 6'1", 205. So there's no difference there. He ran a 4.41 and right behind Horn's number of 4.37 that you've got there. The bench reps were almost identical, 18 for Surtain, 19 for Horn, which is very good for a cornerback. These are both guys who are physical. They come up and play the run. Surtain, in fact, that's one of the best parts of Surtain's game is just his form tackles. I mean, he is under control. One of the things that I loved about Surtain, even when I was studying Trayvon Diggs, the Cowboys' second-round pick last year from Alabama, Surtain is even after Diggs played this year in the NFL, I think Surtain has more experience as a cornerback in his life than what Diggs has. Surtain, who was coached by his dad, the three-time Pro Bowler, Patrick Surtain, at American Heritage Academy in the Fort Lauderdale area down in Florida. They won 2 state championships there. Surtain went right to Alabama and immediately was a starter. He's made 38 straight starts at Alabama. And, he's got the same type of skills or same type of stats that you're talking about with Horn as far as taking away the receiver. One knock on Horn is how physical he has been. And in fact, 10 penalties called against him in his career. I think 5 this past year at South Carolina. Surtain is a guy who, he is a technically sound. I mean, he came out of the womb learning how to be a cornerback in this league, while Horn, being the son of a 4-time Pro Bowl receiver, has been a wide receiver in the past, converted over to cornerback, and just doesn't have the same. But I think the potential, kind of like with Diggs being the brother of a Pro Bowl receiver, Stephon Diggs, and went to Alabama as a receiver. I think, like, for instance, if Surtain were on the left side or whether left side, right side, if they were the cornerbacks for the Cowboys, I think Surtain is your steady Eddie on one side and Diggs is more of your playmaker on the other side. And I think that's what it would be like if you had Surtain and Horn paired together as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. You say Surtain showed up and started right away at Alabama. You could just tell Nick Saban would love Patrick Surtain, right? Just because he does everything right. His fundamentals are perfect, and he would just have a ton of experience. They'd be able to speak the same language. and Saban would go, okay, yeah, this is my kind of guy right there.
Right. And by the way, we should point out Horn did the same thing. He went to South Carolina and he started immediately. And so that was they're very similar. I wouldn't be surprised if one goes in this draft and the other guy goes the next pick in this draft.
Yep, it seems like it's just whatever your choice is. They're very equal. Do you want the raw guy that plays more physical, or do you want kind of the buttoned up, polished guy who does everything right? It's just we'll see. Like, but it looks like right around that 10 to 15 range is where both of those guys get selected.
All right, so how far do those take, for instance, the Broncos at number 9, the Cowboys at number 10, two teams that need cornerbacks, and every team needs cornerbacks. You can't have enough cornerbacks. But how much of a separation are these two guys from the other cornerbacks that you might be able to get in the second and third round? I think I saw one list, and it might have been Dane Brugler, I can't remember, who had 11 corners in his top 61 prospects in this draft. Caleb Farley, we should mention him next because if Caleb Farley didn't have the back surgery, he'd be right in this mix with Horn and Surtain as the top corners in this draft. And here's a guy who's a former quarterback, a very accomplished quarterback who converted to cornerback in college at Virginia Tech and has had a very nice career. But he's had not one but 2 back surgeries, which has to concern people. But I still think I wouldn't at all be surprised if a team takes him in the late first round.
Yep, I'm with you. I actually spoke with D'Angelo Hall, who's another former Virginia Tech great cornerback. I spoke with him last week, and he loves Farley. He actually thinks he has the highest ceiling of all the corners in this draft. And like you mentioned, he was pretty much number 1 on most people's boards until the recent back surgery, and that kind of shifted everyone's rankings a little bit. You know what I like about this class of corners, Bill Jones, is they're big, they're tall. You're looking at Farley 6'2", Surtain 6'2", Horn is 6'1". We mentioned him. Campbell, I mentioned him, 6'2". And so a lot of these big dudes, it's funny that like the receivers, you got to have a big guy to go against DK Metcalf, and like the new age receivers, it's going to be a huge advantage for teams getting corners that are 6'1", 6'2" instead of 5'9" or 5'10", especially in the red zone where that back shoulder fade and the whatever, those are happening all the time now. And these big corners are coming out, and I'm excited to see those guys just go physicality wise with some of these big time receivers in the league.
Hey, the team, they're starting to see Byron Jones with $100 million contract, a big corner, and it's more popular to go ahead and play cornerback because there's money to be made at that position. Greg Newsome from Northwestern is a guy that could be in the first round. Here's a guy that was probably more of a second or third round guy, who is from right in my backyard, Mansfield, Texas, played at Stanford. Paulson Adebo. He fits that same mold, 6'1", 198 pounds. He was a terrific receiver in high school, converted to corner in college at Stanford, and had 8 picks in the 2 years that he played at Stanford. He opted out this year, but had eight interceptions. So he has those ball skills. We should mention one guy who's another son of a former NFL player, Asante Samuel, who doesn't fit that mold of the 6'1" cornerback. He's a 5'10" cornerback, but is very accomplished himself and ran a 4.38 40.
Yep, Asante Samuel. He looks like he's going to be kind of that borderline first round guy. Maybe, kind of one of those first picks into day 2 is where he could slip. Bill Jones, I've got a safety for you. Can I give you a sleeper safety?
A sleeper safety at that. Okay.
Sleeper safety from down in the great state of Texas, right near you. Caden Stearns, Longhorns, Texas Longhorns safety, projected 4th, 5th, 6th round. I don't know why. I'm not sure why he's a day 3 guy. He kind of jumped onto my radar when he had a pro day that was awesome, lit it up. The measurables wise, 6 foot, 202. He ran a 4.4 140, a 42 vertical, a 10.8 broad jump, a 6.9 6.3 cone, and his shuttle was a 4.13. I went back and looked it up. I'm doing this all the time now because we don't have the combine to compare all the safeties and list them all. But his vertical would have been number 1 against all the safeties in last year's class, and his shuttle was really good, and his 40 was amongst the top from last year's class. So, he's got all the athleticism. His story is basically really highly recruited, went down to Austin, blew up as a freshman. He was a freshman All-American. He had 4 interceptions, and he played really well the last 2 seasons, but just not quite to the level of his freshman year. And he opted out after 7 games this past season to kind of focus on the draft. So he started incredibly well at Texas. Like I said, freshman All-American in 2018, still played well in 2019 and 2020, but just wasn't kind of the playmaker where he was on all the highlight reels. I guess I'll put it like that the last couple of years. So I think he's kind of gotten lost in the mix the last few seasons. He's smart though. Bill Jones, all American academic, or I'm sorry, all academic All-American in 2020, 2-time member of the honor roll, team captain, everything you'd like in a leader of your secondary. So I like Caden Stearns as a possibility. I hope he gets into day 2. I think he should be a day 2 guy. And there are some teams that need some safeties. Cowboys, Falcons, Raiders. Those were 3 that stood out to me. And I love this quote, Bill Jones. He said, "I promise you, I'm the steal. I'm the best steal in the NFL draft." That's from Caden Stern. So he knows he's going to be a later pick, but he's telling teams right now, I'm worth it.
Well, and Texas has been known to produce DBs in the safety position. First-round draft picks, Earl Thomas, of course, going back over 10 years ago, and Kenny Vaccaro is another one. They've had some others that have been successful in this league, and I think Caden Stearns fits right in there. From a Cowboys perspective, they probably would hope that he gets to day 3, and then I could see him because the Cowboys just don't draft safeties. That they haven't traditionally drafted them in the first or second. Well, going back to Roy Williams, they did, recently, but recently they haven't. Another guy from the great state of Texas who is considered. In fact, he's from not far, as a matter of fact, not far from Caden Stearns, Smithson Valley High School, which is also in the San Antonio area. Caden Stearns went to Cibolo Steele High School down there. Trayvon Merrig from TCU is, you look throughout this mock draft process, and Merrig has been a guy that's been the number 1 ranked safety on so many lists, and he's 7 interceptions in his career, 2nd team All-American last year, playing for Gary Patterson at TCU, and he was the Jim Thorpe Award winner this year. And so Merrig is, you're looking at a first-round safety. Merrig might be your guy. But I'm going to throw another guy out there who is climbing the charts. Once people started finding out about Central Florida's Richie Grant, Dane Brugler has him listed as his number 1 safety, but as the 40th overall prospect. So that would be a 2nd-round selection. And so Richie Grant out of Central Florida is another guy to keep an eye on at the safety position.
Bill Jones, is he a cover safety, or is he an in the box guy?
Richie Grant, just watching some Richie Grant, he's more of your free safety. We're always looking for free safeties, and Merrig is more, the other thing about the safety position in the NFL, they seem to be more and more interchangeable all the time. And that's the way many teams look at their safeties, but still, there are skills involved, and there is a difference usually in skills, even though just from a tactical standpoint, they may line up close at the snap. They may line up like a box safety, but they're fleeing to be a free safety as soon as the ball is snapped. to confuse a quarterback. And Richie Grant is more of the free safety type at Central Florida. Otherwise, at the safety, and then I think you look at some of these cornerbacks, and some of the cornerbacks that are highly rated could convert to play safety in this league as well.
Yeah, I've heard the same type of situation. That's great. I mean, more versatility, the better. I'm all for it. Let's see what these guys got. Give me a corner or two you think could play safety. Is there any that stuck out to you when you look at that list?
I'm looking at where is the guy? I'm looking through my big green notebook as we speak. Elijah Molden is a guy that popped out to me, who could be a guy that could be on that radar as far as playing some safety as well. Mm-hmm. You look at some other guys that are, Molden is a guy that he's climbed the charts as a cornerback too, but I just see some position flex with him. It's hard to tell on some of these guys, like the Cowboys, they had a cornerback who played at Tulsa last year, Reggie Robinson, rather. They have two Robinsons on their team. Rashard Robinson is a cornerback from LSU, and then Reggie Robinson. And they picked him in the 4th round, and he just seemed to struggle making the conversion to safety. And so as soon as I say there's a cornerback that could play safety, well, it's harder. It's a harder transition than you think. Molden, though, from Washington, is a guy who's 5'9.5", 192 pounds. So he's shorter. He doesn't fit that mold, so to speak, that teams are looking for at cornerback, but he can just make him a free safety then. And you can cover in the slot. And so it's interesting. There is such a need at cornerback, and there are so many corners that get drafted in this league. And there's by contrast, there's not as many safeties that get drafted. And so I think that scouts are always looking for those corners who whether it be from a mindset standpoint, being able to set a defense, a leader type who can convert over to safety. And of course, obviously, when you play safety, you got to be able to tackle.
Yeah, no doubt about it, especially in these days. I mean, in space, right? All the offenses are trying to get their guys in space, and everyone wants these quick juke guys where one missed tackle and they're going to the house. So you got to be a really good tackler these days to be in the secondary.
Here's the other problem with that, though. Convincing the player that he needs to move to safety. Usually what convinces the player more than anything is that 40 time. If you're running a 4.6, you're now a safety. You're not a cornerback anymore. But the reason it's hard to convince the players because the money is made at the cornerback position. It's not made at the safety position.
For sure. The glitz and glamour is intercepting the ball and locking guys down. And that's definitely a more glamorous position in the NFL rather than safety. And I mean, safety, you gotta be more in the run game. You got to go against more linemen. You got to blow guys up. They're asked to do a ton, these hybrid safeties, especially these days.
And there's another safety I should mention from Oregon, Javon Holland. A lot of people like him. He's a 6 foot, 207 pounder. He ran under a 4.5 at his pro day with 19 bench reps. And he's ranked amongst the top 3 to 4 safeties as well. And I believe Dan Quinn, the Cowboys defensive coordinator, was at the Oregon pro day, which opened some eyes here in Dallas anyway, that maybe the Cowboys, that he's on the Cowboys radar. All right, Cody, what do you want to do on our next episode here of Jonesing for Football? We've gone over the last couple of weeks, we've gone through a lot of the positions. We've given sort of a foundation on some of these players. I'm ready as we lead up to the draft over the course of the next 2 weeks to you being the NFL Network producer you are, come up with some questions on that gets our mind to thinking on some of these prospects across the board.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to do compelling questions. I think this week we'll knock that one out. And then I also want to do bold predictions because I've got a bold prediction on a couple of the quarterbacks, which are obviously going to be at the top of the draft. I bold prediction.
Is it on your Ohio State quarterback?
He is involved. He is involved.
Do you still think? Do you think 5 quarterbacks are going in the top 7, 8 picks?
No, I'm saying no on that. That's not my bold prediction.
Okay.
I'm gonna
So
say.
Do you think 5 quarterbacks will be off the board before the Cowboys pick at number 10?
I'm also saying no on that as well. I say one guy slips. I think I know who it is. But I can't wait to give you my bold predictions. And I've got some compelling questions because Bill Jones, we've done quarterbacks, running backs, receivers. Now we've just done the defense this week. There's one guy we haven't discussed. His name is Kyle Pitts. He is going to be part of my compelling questions. We need to talk about Kyle Pitts, who might end up being the best player in this entire draft.
Okay, we'll do that on our next episode of Jonesing for Football. These Jonesing for Football episodes are going to be coming at you fast and furious over the next couple of weeks. You know why? Because the NFL draft is coming at you fast and furious. With these 40 times at these pro days, this is a fast draft because these aren't real 40 times. These weren't done at the combine. And that's why these athletes look like such phenomenal athletes to us. All right, we'll see you next time here on Jonesing for Football.